Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this session, joining the Digital Showroom webinar. My name is Robert, and with me is my colleague Emily, who will give you an overview of Digital Showroom, our business-to-business selling platform. Before we start, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to take part in today's webinar. First of all, you can submit your questions in the chat box here in the right-hand side, and we'll try to answer them during the session. Otherwise, please send them to our support email address that you can see on the screen. This webinar is recorded and will be uploaded to Zadonkopedia. So if you need to rewatch it, if you need to watch it at slower or faster playback rates, if you need to enable closed captions or subtitles, you can do that on the replay. We expect this webinar to take about 30 minutes. So without any further delays, I will hand it over to Emily to walk you through Zadonk's digital showroom.
Let's get started. I'm hoping that you can all see my screen okay, although right now you are just seeing my emails. But the reason why we're starting with my emails is because I would love to start showing you what the client or your end customer receives. And then we'll kind of walk backwards through the digital showroom tool. So like Robert said, our digital showroom tool is our B2B platform. It has the capability for line sheets, for buyer portals, for selections, for multiple imagery, a chat, and all sorts of things. So we're going to walk through that. But ultimately, I'd like to kind of start off with what your buyer will receive first. So jumping back into my emails, here is an example of an email. So this is a template within which you would set up. And you can see here that there is a link at the bottom. So this link is generated by Zadonk. Let's just move this. And all the buyer needs to do is click on that link. And that link is unique to each of your customers. So you've got a landing screen here. It could maybe be the overview of the collection. Maybe it's your store. Maybe it's your lookbook. Whatever you want, you can place here. And then the buyer just needs to press enter. So what you see here is a pop-up. You can choose not to utilize this, so not to have additional information here, but it's also quite a nice way to lure in your clients to the portal itself, maybe giving a little bit more of a description, inspiration, or something like that about what this portal is. Or if you're using it for stock, maybe you say that it's the inventory or your live inventory for that season, but we can totally go through that after. So pressing continue, this is my buyer portal. So what we have here is all of my products, which I have categorized into their product category. Now, one thing to mention here is you have flexibility on how you coin these categories. They don't have to be linked to your categories in your product settings. These are entirely independent in the digital showroom, meaning that if you decide not to go down the product category route and perhaps you want to define them by drops or specific delivery windows or capsule collections, it's entirely how you want to do it. You could even do it by look numbers if that's the way that you wanted to group your line sheet or your portal. So you have full flexibility here. I have gone through the kind of generic product category type, but all of this is defined by you at the point of creating your portal. Another area you will see here is the colors. So your buyers not only can shop by the specific categories or sections, but they can also shop by color. So perhaps they're working within a particular color palette one season, or they're really excited about a color, they can always shop through that as well. Another element to the search filter is the actual search bar. So if you've got customers, or if you've got a helps me spell it right. If you've got a bread and butter product and your buyers really want to make sure that they see what colors it comes in that season, all they need to do is just search for it there. So they may be way more familiar with your product names or your product codes, in which case they can literally just search for it and see what you've got available this season in that. And then the final way to search is the badges. So they're a little small here, but they will blow up once you actually get into the products themselves. These are entirely uploadable by you. We don't design them for you, but you have an option for 3 badges, and you can assign 1, 2, or 3 to each of your products. So some examples, these are the ones I've used, is bestseller, lookbook runway, or sustainable. But of course, however you choose to define them, you can, perhaps even by drops. So one thing you will notice is we now have the option for multiple imagery. So the beauty of the digital showroom is that once this is switched on in your system, you will notice in product costings in your media tab, where you usually upload your 1 image, you will now have the option to upload 5 product images, a swatch image, a 360 zip, and a video. Of course, if you don't have all of that media, you can still stick with the 1 image, but it really gives you that flexibility and full visibility on more kind of product details should you wish to use that. So that's a really exciting function of the tool. The actual digital showroom itself, in terms of the navigation from the client, for them to add things to their selection, all they need to do is hover on the tick. But like you saw before, if you jump into the product itself, they can also add it from here as well. And just to go back, they just need to press on the line sheet button here up at the top. So when we are going through and selecting, this takes everything to the order tab. So if they wanted to remove something, they can press the red X here, or simply just untick the products that they have marked on the line sheet tab itself. So if we jump into another one of these products, just to show you in terms of a video, this is what you are able to upload. So much more visibility, I'm sure you'll agree, than we had prior. So it's super exciting for us to be able to offer that. Another thing you'll notice at the bottom is something called recommendations. So you can actually assign, whenever a client presses on a specific product, that actually at the bottom you've got a list of recommendations. So again, these things might be other trench coats, for example, or perhaps it is other things within the same color palette, or you might even just be building up the look that's within the lookbook. So how you use this is entirely up to you, whatever makes the most sense to you. And they can simply just click through on these should they want to add these to their order as well. So if we just go through and add a few more bits to our order, what we will see is the order tab. So this is all of the units we have selected so far. You can also see the store address pulling through, the delivery address, payment terms, shipping terms, and trade discount. If you don't want the trade discount to show on that, at the point of sending the portal to your buyers, you can actually remove that from the visibility. Now, there is a further tab here called Messages. So you have the option to entirely remove this should you not want to have that kind of increased communication with your buyers, or you can allow for your buyers to send you a message through the portal. So for example, does the Olivia dress come in red this season? And they can press send. So from your side, if you were to go into your selections area, which we will delve into a little further later, we can see that Harrods have sent us a message through the portal. So if we say, no, not this season, that MOQ is 15 units for exclusive, we could just send that straight back to the portal. So while Harrods are still shopping in the portal, if they go into the messages, you've got a live message back from them. Like I said, if you really don't want that increased communication, you can actually just switch off the messaging tool altogether, which means that you won't even have that tab here. So it's totally optional, but quite a useful functionality should you want to kind of reduce the formalization of emails and that sort of thing, and just be able to have a little bit more of increased communication through the actual buying and ordering process. One other thing to mention is we have the submit by date here. Again, this is set by you. So for each portal, or when you can list the kind of end date, the last date you want them to submit their order by. The longest window is 90 days, but obviously when we're talking forward orders, it's probably more likely to be around 14 days. And I can show you how to set that up shortly. We also have a downloads tab. So you would select what information you would like the customer to be able to download. in their portal. So things like a PDF line sheet, an Excel order sheet, which will mark their selection in Excel, that they can also quantify on the Excel and send through to you, or keep it for their own records should they need an Excel record of this. We've also, and this has been since we've launched Digital Showroom, created something called, what we call as an attachment library. And this allows you to add up to 1 gigabyte of additional media. So it might be things like press releases, high-res lookbooks, show videos, all of the sort of assets you want to combine within your portal. That can all be achieved now in your system settings. So you would upload the information there, and then your buyer can simply just download from here. So we're kind of moving away from needing another sort of third party like a WeTransfer or a Dropbox to send various different assets to your client. You can hold it all in one place. And like I said, that's up to 1 gigabyte. So you could then see here, the buyer can decide if they want to print the press release or the lookbook, and they would just be able to download from here. And they'll also be able to see the weighting of that as well. Jumping back into our order, we can start to quantify this order. So obviously we are acting as if we're Harrods. We can see that the quantities are going up, the unit price and the total so far. Now, let's say Harrods doesn't have time to finish this now, or maybe there's a sign-off process that requires the buying director to have a look at this. They could come out of the portal and this would be saved. So even if this link was sent to 5 different of the Harrods buyers, the portal will hold this information. So long as it's saved anytime, and they can keep going in as many times as they need to until the submit date or until they have submitted the order, and they can continue working on this. So they've always kind of got the option to keep going back and adding new things to the order, or perhaps removing bits as well. So just by them quantifying here, this is not yet feeding through into your orders area in Zidonc, not until they have actually submitted their order. So what I'm going to do is add the quantities and show you what this now will look like in Zidonc. And finally here. So we can save this, we can see the total. So 7 products, check, 48 units in total value 12,146, and then the value after discount. So at the point of pressing submit, you get this little pop-up here. And what this does is it breaks down all of the products, all of the quantities ordered, the prices and the totals. Now, perhaps something looks wrong. Maybe it's over or under their OTB, or they realize that they missed a style. They can quite simply come out of here and maybe look to increase the units. And then again, let's say they are finally happy with the order. They can then submit. Now, it is essential that they enter a name. For you, it's really helpful because you'll receive an email to say that Harrods have submitted their order, but it's always helpful that they enter their name as well, so you can see who the last buyer was to touch the order. It's really helpful from a traceability point of view, but also for further communication. So we are going to put Emily and then press submit. So now that the order has been submitted, you will be able to, or should I say the buyer is now able to download a recap. So obviously this isn't the order confirmation, because we know that anything could potentially happen between now and production, or now and books closing. But for now, they get a nice PDF recap of their order. Plus they are able to, from the downloads tab, still download their Excel order sheet, which will have the totals of their orders. So if we jump back into this PDF, we have an overview of their order. So they have that for them, and the order has now reached you. So going back into Zidonc, if we look in our orders area, if it was not filtered on pick ticket, but order confirmation, we can now see that we have Harrods order that has come through. So order discount, total value, VAT, the order has now come through to our system. It's really as easy as that. And also in the selections area, what I wanted to show you, so this is the where we can monitor our selections from this season. When sending the buyer portal to any of your buyers, it automatically creates a selection. So these are not manual selections. We have Harrods here where we have the total products. So we remember it's 50 units in total. and also the date that it was submitted and the order number that it corresponds to. For Lane Crawford, which was something I sent out earlier, we have the date this was last opened, but we can see that it was not submitted. So while we're here, I kind of wanted to show you also that this is a really good way to sort of track where your buyers are at, and you will see it line by line for each store, the date that it was sent, the expiry date of the link, the auto reminder, which is a reminder that you set should you want to, for a reminder to go out to the buyer saying, don't forget, and here's a reminder of the link, which I have set to be the 26th of April. And also you can even see the date last opened. One other thing, and if you wanted to kind of see how the buyer was doing with their selection, what have they quantified? Because we can see here that they've quantified 37 units and 9 products, but we can't really see what that is. So you actually have this option to view the current status. So what this is ultimately you going into their portal. However, it's read only. So obviously you can't make any changes, but you do have full visibility of where they're at. So this is an unsubmitted order, but it's a work in progress. So we can see that Lane Crawford so far, we saw the 9 products and the 37 units on the previous screen, but actually we can see what they have selected and what they have assigned quantities against. It's a good way for you to measure perhaps how they're doing versus the OTB, but also you might even have introduced certain things within the collection that were for specific regions or specific buyers, and maybe they didn't select it or they haven't so far. It may be a good indication for you to give them a nudge. You can even send them a message through the portal should you want to, or just reach out to them to see how they're going. So it's a really nice way to kind of have more visibility rather than, sending out that portal and then not knowing what's coming through until the actual date of submission. So when this order is then quantified by Lane Crawford, it would then be submitted and would get an SO number there. Another thing that you can do from here is actually, should you be in a showroom appointment, and let's say you haven't actually sent out the digital showroom prior to a customer, but you quickly wanted to note down their selection and send it through. What you could do is also create a manual selection from here. So I can select a customer. So let's go for Boutique 1. I can choose which style I want, so split by color or swatches. We haven't gone over that just yet, but I'm going to keep it with split by color, and I'm going to put it at autumn winter 23 D1. And I'm going to go to OK. So what I have here is a totally blank canvas. I can set my link expiry, so I'm giving them until the 3rd of May, and also an auto reminder after 7 days. This can be adjusted here. This is just what I have set as my defaults. You might want to put a little bit of a blurb in the description, or maybe any notes that you want to send them. You can add that here. The RRP currencies are pulling through from this customer. And also you can add a cover image if you have time. But mainly what we want to do is actually create the selection that they're making in the showroom. So let's say they are with you in the showroom and they are putting everything on their rails. You can go through and obviously you can filter by your categories and do their selection. You can even use any of those categories and filter through. So if I'm going to also look at jackets and then press add. So this is their selection so far. Perhaps they need to leave and they can't stay to do the rest of the appointment, but they want you to send them their selection. But perhaps you're thinking that maybe they've missed off a few things, or you'd really like to share with them the rest of the collection. What you can do, and obviously I'm showing you in this quickest way possible, but you can spend a little bit more time on it and creating subsections, but I'm going to put here full collection. So I'm going to create one subsection, and I am just going to select all products. So these are all the 60 products, and I want them all to sit in full collection. So what I will then be sending them is the selection they made in the showroom, but then there'll also be another tab for them to view the full collection. So at the point of which I send this to them, they will then have 2 tabs, and they will then be able to add on to their selection from other products in the collection. You don't necessarily have to put everything there. It's entirely up to you, but just showing you the option of if you did want to share this with them, then they would absolutely be able to add additional. So we can preview this at the moment. So the collection, so this is what they've got on order at the moment, but here are all the other products. So they can still kind of flip between the two. Are they happy with these 5 products, or do they want to add more to their selection, in which case they can do, and then they can quantify as normal. So that's the way in which you can create that manual selection. It will sit alongside your other selections that were generated from the line sheet, but you will see that the selection name is unique to them because you created it manually from here rather than it being automatically generated from sending the buyer portal. One other thing to show you just while we're here, you also have a log. So the log in the digital showroom, and this is the same on the line sheet, is actually very descriptive. It will show you what was added, when products were removed, who did it, and the time. So it's obviously there's a lot going on today because I've just done that with you in 3 seconds, but it's really good to keep track if you're suddenly missing a style from a line sheet that you thought had been added and it had been removed. You'll be able to check the log. So really good for traceability. And you also, if you had got messages in that portal, obviously you can measure that there. In addition, on the ones that we've sent out, you can also see who you'd sent it to. So perhaps you wanted to see if you'd sent it to all the buyers, maybe the email address was wrong or anything like that. You have that record of who this has been sent to. Cool. So I want to now jump into the line sheet or the digital showroom. So we call them line sheets, but ultimately you're building buyer portals. So I briefly touched upon before that you have 2 different types of line sheets or portals. One is split by color and the other is swatches. So split out by color is just when each style is listed independently and never grouped. Even if the style and the fabric are the same, they are listed individually. However, we also have the options for swatches. So perhaps you have the same product in 20 different colors and you just don't want the same product on repetition 20 times. Instead, what you have is a swatch line sheet. So just using an example here where I have the same product, style name and fabric, but a different color. You can see you can flip between these 2. So at the point of creating your line sheet, you will want to define which you want to use. So whether it is split by color or a swatches line sheet. So those are your options there. Another thing that I wanted to show you as well, particularly for our inventory users, is that you are able to select at the point of sharing your line sheets whether or not you want available to sell to show. So perhaps this is probably less likely for a forward order collection, but if you are doing an inventory or like an in-season portal, you would probably want your available now to show. And we also have the option for available future as well. So if I remember rightly, I have a product here which has available future. And even if we press on the eye icon, it will give you the date, or it will give the buyer the date within which we expect the deliveries to come in from. This is reading from your production book out, book in, the dates on your production order. So again, a really good tool, particularly when trying to do in-season trade and seeing what is and isn't available. So those are the 2 different types of line sheets. So I'm just going to click out of this. And we are going to jump into your settings. So obviously this is slightly more of the nitty-gritty from your side, just a few things that need to be set up, or even just to show you what the options are. So you'll have in your settings an additional area here called Digital Showroom, and you have some options. So some of these are fairly self-explanatory, and I won't run through each thing line by line, but as a default, you can choose whether you prefer things to be split by color or swatches. For our American customers, we have the option for the American spelling of color, and also you can select your PDF layout. So I believe we have 8 different types of line sheet offerings. So depending on whether you want it landscape, portrait, multiple images, just the lead image, you can choose the different line sheet options. Again, this is just by setting your default. Obviously, at the point of sending, you can choose to print in a different way, but it is worth establishing what your preferences are. Whether or not you want the order to import as approved, or if you'd rather go through and approve orders, that's entirely up to you. And then these are the badges that I spoke about. So you just need to make sure that they're in JPEG or PNG and you are able to upload them here. In the buyer portal, you can list your brand. So maybe it's slightly different to the company name you've got listed in your settings. You can pop that there. And also, excitingly, we have fonts as well. First time Stonks ever played with fonts before. So we've got 7 different ones here, so you can play around with those. Wherever you see this I, it's just going to take you to a Stonkopedia link, giving you all of the different examples so you can make that call for yourself. Again, default for link expiries, whether by default you want to show the available to sell and available to sell future, not relevant for those who aren't inventory clients, but relevant to those that are. And sticking with the inventory theme, this is the first time we have also implemented the ability to stop a customer placing an order if there is not enough stock. So you have the option here. If you are sending an inventory line sheet, so one where you are showing the available to sell, do you want the client only to be able to order from that available to sell? I.e., if you have 20 units of a bag and they try and quantify 25, are you happy to accept the 5 over and you're looking to produce more? Or are you saying, no, I just want to sell through the stock, I don't want to produce anymore, in which case you can select the customer can only order available stock. So if they try to over submit, the order wouldn't go through and they wouldn't even be able to add that to their order. So you have those 2 options there. Really helpful, particularly when trying to shift through maybe older stock or in-season stock, things that you're not looking to reproduce. Otherwise, you can have the customer can order any quantity, but just be mindful of what setting that is on when exporting the link out. Again, the infamous messaging, this is where you would choose whether or not you allow it. You can also upload independent terms and conditions here. So I'm going to cancel changes and go to email templates. So in order to export your digital showroom, your buyer portal to your customers, you must ensure that you have set up email templates. So I've got one for each season. Make sure you're in reply as they reply to and CC that in. And then you can just do a nice little blurb about sharing the platform with them. You can even just tell them how to use it. So make sure you press save and submit your selection, etc. Obviously, entirely up to you. It's a free type field. And then the final area of the digital showroom settings is the attachment library, which is what I was discussing before about having 1 GB of memory of all different attachments that you'd like to add. So things like show videos and that sort of thing. So finally, let's get into actually how to create that line sheet. So by going to add new line sheet, I'm just going to call this webinar test. I've done this before and go to OK. So we're going to run through this. This description here is the area within which that little blurb popped up when I gave the collection inspiration. So this might be for your collection inspo. And you've got the delivery period, which is pulling through from your system settings. But if you want to amend that at all, you absolutely can. Your PDF layout and all of this is self-explanatory. This is where you would upload that holding image, that landing page, the first thing the buyer sees. And it can be up to 5 megabytes, so fairly high res. Then you've got your product section. So this is where you can either create it by product label, or you might want to do it by drops, or even you might want to do both. So I'm just going to create 2 for time reasons. And then go to the advanced add. I can literally sort by dresses, select all displayed, add 20 products, add it to my dresses. And it really is as quick as that. You have the option also to move products around, so change the kind of merchandising or VM of your products on the portal itself to be in line with how you kind of want that to look. In addition, you've got the recommendations here, so you can show the images and set up recommendations. So I might just look at all the blue dresses and make sure that they are recommendations for this other blue dress. You also have the option for additional details, so perhaps you actually want to give the inspiration of a particular product, or maybe just a little bit of a blurb, further kind of description of how it's made, you've got this additional details tab and also badges. So the media here, this is where you can change your media. This will feed through to product costing. So whatever you change in product costings from a media point of view will pull through here, or you can change your media here and it will pull back to product costing. So you never have to do that twice. There are a host of bulk actions as well, which I won't necessarily go through now because time is of the essence, but you have the options under selected here to add badges. If you wanted to add badges for a whole range of products, you can do, remove badges or copy and move, and also to remove sections as well. You can easily find your products here and type for them as well. So that's really how you would create your line sheets. I'm going to cancel my changes. And really the last thing that I wanted to show you here was how to actually send the portal. And then I will stop talking. So where you see this email icon here, you press on here and you have this pop-up screen. So this is where you choose from the templates that you set up in your settings, which one you want to use, whether or not you want to send a standard attachment. So a standard attachment is just a PDF of your line sheet, no buyer portal, but we are going to send to the buyer portal, which will then throw up this pop-up here. So again, these are the link expiries pulling from my system settings. I can adapt them here. So this auto reminder is something that Zedonk will send out should you select any number here. So anything from 0 up will send a auto reminder to the client should they not have quantified the order by this date here. You can also choose, this is where you choose whether or not you want available to sell and available future to show, and go to OK. Choose your attachments. So you don't always have to send everything on your library. Maybe for specific clients, you want to show certain things and other clients others. And then the important thing is who you are sending this to. So in your ad, this is pulling your full address book. You might decide to search by type. So it's just a contact rather than your like delivery contacts and your accounts contacts. And also then you can go through and select, but you can even go to select all displayed and add 30 contacts. So you can see here, this is now grouped to 18 customers. So it's not going to send 30 individual links. It's going to send 18 links to 30 contacts broken down by the customers itself. So Boon the Shop is going to get 2 because these 2 contacts are going to get it, etc., etc. So Zedonk already knows how to group your customers. So it's not like 2 people from Harrods are going to receive 2 different links and therefore quantify 2 different orders. Zedonk knows to group them together. Another thing to mention, and really the final thing to mention, is that you don't have to create different currency line sheets. Because everything is under one roof, Zedonk knows that Harrods pays in GBP, they know Galeries Lafayette Paris pay in euros. You don't have to create those different line sheets. You can send this out to everybody in bulk, and so long as the currency is set up correctly in that customer in Zedonk, then they will receive the portal in the correct customer. Then, sorry, in the right currency to that customer. Then all you need to do is press send, and that will generate those selections here for you to kind of track and monitor, and then hopefully receive those converted order back through the portal. I believe that is everything from me. I think I've talked plenty. So I am going to stop sharing my screen.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you so much for this, Emily. A very thorough and detailed walkthrough of the digital showroom tool. So thorough, in fact, that we didn't have any questions. So we'll just leave it there. Before we finish, I just want to make sure that you know about remaining 2 sessions that we have for today. It's part of the Zedonk Day. We have Shopify integration with Zedonk at 2:30, so in about 25 minutes. And then Zedonk's product review of 2023, and then what's coming next. Very exciting session at 3:30 p.m. But for now, thank you again for your time, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.